I grew up mostly in New York, Washington, and then 7 years in Cambridge, Mass. I'd come from a poor family and had never traveled anywhere, but got through Harvard College on what was called a Naval Reserve Officers Training Scholarship, which required me to spend all my summers either at sea or in Marine boot camp, and then spend 3 years at sea afterward. So it was the U.S. Navy that took me to Athens for the first time. After 6 weeks at sea, we had 6 days in port. I spent the first 2 seeing the Acropolis and the Agora and all the great sights of Athens. But on my 3rd day, took a bus tour to Mycenae. I can still remember walking up the path and seeing the famous Lion Gate, the oldest standing monument. And then as I looked to the side, I saw an archaeological excavation underway. It was the British school under Sir Alan Wace excavating what's called the Cult Center at Mycenae. So I wandered over and leaned over the guardrail to see if I could see what was going on. The guard shouted at me to stand back. The most important thing in life is doing something you love. And I thought, wouldn't it be wonderful someday to be able to actually to stand there and watch an excavation? Of course, that day came. 10 years later, I had a chance to visit Crete for the first time, and the center of the first complex society of the Western world, where human beings went from living in hovels to having nice things like palaces and plumbing and writing for the first time. How this came about interested me, and then it broadened out from there to the entire Eastern Mediterranean, and finally what causes the rise and collapse of civilizations and what lessons that might hold for us today. It was a massive volcanic eruption on the island of Thera in the middle of the Aegean Sea. The explosion could be heard thousands of miles away. It came just as the Minoan seaborne empire was at its peak. The eruption of Thera marked the beginning of the decline. Even more significant in a way, its impact on the chronology of the ancient world and the damage it's done. The great Danish historian of a century ago, Rudi Thompson, once said that chronology is the spine of history. Because if you're an historian and you don't know what happened first and what happened next, you're in big trouble. You can't figure out cause and effect and what caused a civilization to collapse or what caused one civilization to conquer another. Willard Libby in 1960 won the Nobel Prize for first showing if you could date things by radiocarbon dating. The problem was that all sorts of things can go wrong. Volcanic gases interfere with radiocarbon dates. From the Alps to the center of Sicily, it's one big gas emission field. So the dates frequently make no sense. Very similar Minoan wall paintings, which look as though they might have been all done by the same group of traveling artists, have been dated hundreds of years apart because of unreliable radiocarbon dates. I remember reading an article in an archaeological journal by 2 scholars at the University of Arizona's tree-ring laboratory. They reported examining long-lived trees and finding evidence of perhaps some sort of major cataclysm around 1628 BC. Now, of course, Arizona is just heaven because you have tree rings that can be exactly datable. By taking samples of those tree rings and comparing it to radiocarbon dates, you could calibrate your radiocarbon dates. And that made me a little curious as to whether this technology could be adopted for the ancient Mediterranean as well. So we had what was called the second radiocarbon revolution. Of course, the University of Arizona has always been a leader in the field of anthropology under Barbara Mills, who many would regard as the leading anthropologist in the United States. The point was raised that Arizona had a leading position in the New World archaeology and in many emerging sciences, but was not really represented in the Old World. And a proposal was made to start a program called CMATE, the Center for Mediterranean Archaeology and the Environment. I saw the possibilities of collaboration between the Tree Ring Lab and the Radiocarbon Lab. So I arrived in Tucson thinking that I could learn something about tree ring research. At that point, the Tree Ring Laboratory was located in the basement of the football stadium for the simple reason that that was the only place on the entire campus that was large enough to accommodate these huge trees. Thanks to the Arizona Tree Ring Lab, we're learning stunning things about the human past, but also with tremendous implications for the human future. Think about what the real dangers to humanity are. The major risks that society and civilization faces today are those that have always existed. We're learning about prior episodes of pandemics, and we're learning in great detail about episodes of climate change. It will really take serious, sustained effort to devote the necessary resources to solving these problems. Societies as a whole have to be prepared to train more people preparing for pandemics and dealing with climate change. There's never been a more important time to address the major questions facing humanity. We study the past and the collapse of past civilizations as the lessons they have for the future.